But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters. That was a bit of dark arts there from the Amigos, a bit of time wasting. Keep you hanging on, a little bit of to and fro. But no, honestly, lads, we never get an opportunity to catch up away from screen because some of us are all different parts of the world and different parts of the northeast. So sometimes we do have to have a little conflab, not about the show, just about life in general. So sorry it took a little bit longer to get on, but here we are as always to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend and with all your usual favourites. And quite a defensive week this week for you, Steve Hasty. I'm sure you won't have heard about it because I know you're out working a lot. But a lot of people, I do every now and then, once or twice a year, do a little chat about the show and what people want, and what people like and what people don't like. And it seems that people are getting a little bit sick of dogs, mate. Not sick of them. They just feel that you might be getting a bit of a rough deal. They think that, we should tone it down a little bit. So I've got a lot of dogs this week, I've got to be honest, we're going to tail it back a little bit. People do want lookalikes to be a little bit curtailed. Not too much, I think, but, the odd dog in there. I think the stipulation that people have asked for, Steve, is that they'll look like you.
Well, that's fair enough, I suppose.
So when you keep saying that you want to tail it back, is that you trying to is that why you just give him a paw?
I was giving the dog a bone there, wasn't I, lads? Yeah.
So right. The other thing
you'll have everybody howling at that.
That sounds like a bloody tale to me.
The other thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to laugh tonight.
I'm just following his lead.
I'll be getting called. I'll be getting called a bully.
You could get collared for that.
I'm going to stop laughing.
Okay, as always, it's your show. You come up with what you want to come up with. There was an interesting one in the NUFC Matters chat this week, though, which Keith suggested we discuss, and it's a good one, Keith. Digital ticketing mentioned in the most recent sustainability review by the club. Now, this was on the Newcastle United Supporters Club Facebook page, and it basically comes with a little subheading, and then this digital ticketing will be introduced for the 23-24 season, significantly reduce the amount of paper. E-ticketing has already been introduced for season tickets, reducing the amount of paper generated. So Keith described it in the chat as an interesting point for discussion, maybe. Over to you, Keith.
To be honest, I don't fully understand it. I understand what reducing paperwork means, and I understand what e-tickets are, but I suppose where it led me to be, I was thinking if people who are members, because a lot of people have got memberships this year and they've signed up and the 25s and 30,000's been on for some games to get tickets, I wonder if an e-ticketing form for that could stop the queues, whereby the queues could be done digitally and you didn't have to sit there and lose 2 hours queuing up behind people. As far as reducing paperwork, it's the way of the modern world. That's where we're going, whether we like it or not. If you try, someone who once described to me, if you try and resist change, it's like putting your fingers on an old machine in the cogs and trying to slow them down. You get your fingers ripped off. So you've got to move with change. I think e-ticketing is one of the things that's going to come to us all. The fact that the average age of this panel is about 80, it's maybe 70, is probably alien to us, because what we do is we used to queuing up for tickets outside of the box office and get the camp bed at the bottom of the Gallagher end overnight to get tickets, and I guess you do miss all that, but it's the way forward, isn't it? Kids are leading the way forward, and you know, I think there'll be a lot of changes. I guess, Steve, when I saw it, I think I was curious as to whether e-ticketing could be introduced to make, let's suppose there's 28,000 season tickets holders, and let's suppose the away team get 4, and there's, I don't know, 26,000 left or whatever, or 28, 24. Would you get to the point where the people with the memberships queuing up, say for, maybe there's 40,000 comes on, could you use a digital way of fairly allocating them rather than, for example, touts getting them and doing that? Whether you could, because I think it's first come, first serve, whoever gets on first. I just wonder whether there's a digital method of fair distribution, because again this week I've seen articles where people on digital social media have said I've been stood in the ground and I've heard a big crowd of people with foreign voices, and you think, and I think it was on your show with Liam, Steve, the other night, where it was on Liam's show. There was Liam and Steve Wraith was talking about whether people from abroad are getting tickets ahead of people queuing up, and I haven't got a clue whether that happens or not. But I wonder whether e-ticketing is a way of doing things fairer. Whether you put an allocation in for what games you want to go to, 10 games in advance, then the club notify you as being successful. I don't know. I'm not sure what advancements you can make, but is that your interpretation, Mr. Hissey, of how e-ticketing works? Is it, I understand that they'll digitally send them out rather than send you a ticket form in the post. That's what normally happens. But is that what people are proposing?
I don't know, Steve. Keith, it's an interesting concept, I suppose, that the club's going to move to e-ticketing as part of some sort of environmental awareness or environmental savings. But I'm wondering when it was discussed. I'm wondering when they had the conversation with the membership. I'm wondering when they had the conversation with supporters in general. I wonder how's the scheme going to work. Obviously, they've made a statement that it's going to be this, but then nothing else. It's just a statement. It's in the newspaper, or something that the clubs put out to a member of the press at the press conference today. I don't know how the story broke, but there's a few things I would raise. You mentioned age there, Keith. I presume for an e-ticket, you've then got to have a phone. So youngsters and people, elderly people who perhaps don't have a mobile phone, people who don't want to take their mobile phone to the match because they don't want to lose it. The people that, you've got no pockets, so you don't want to take your phone with you. You don't want to be contacted by the wife when you're at the match. You don't want to be contacted when you're before the game, after the game, so you don't take your phone. How does that operate?
There's a lot of older people have phones that don't allow like digital photographs.
Exactly. Well, if your phone doesn't have a screen, and it's one of the old Nokia style phones, they were with kids as well, not that type of thing. There's lots of questions that would have been raised if they'd had some sort of conflab and dialogue with the fans, but I'm not aware of any dialogue that's taking place. I'm sure somebody might come up on the forum and say, they've had a discussion with this fan group and that fan group, this member of the trust, that member of the trust. Maybe the trust are still wrapped up in an election, that second election in 6 months. Maybe it's because of that. There's no dialogue taking place. I honestly don't know, Keith, what the answer is, but it's a big change. Somebody mentioned there that they like to collect tickets. That's something that's no longer going to happen. Yes, we've seen it with away tickets before, and we've seen it also with certain sections of the ground at the moment, where I drive people into the match sometimes in the corporate area, and they get an e-ticket. They don't get a paper ticket or anything like that. They're just told there's an e-ticket for you, and just show them when you get to the ground, that type of thing, because they're in a group or they're part of an executive box or something like that. And they've usually come from overseas as well, as you mentioned there. But a lot more questions and answers, I think. I think that for everybody around the table.
Does it not give more chance of fraud? It's not easier to sell somebody an e-ticket online that's made up than actually physically say, take me ticket in or take me membership card.
Well, again, this is obviously e-tickets are used by other clubs, and I'm sure they've got a system that reduces the risk of fraud and that type of thing. But
I would say there's probably things in place which make it less likely to suffer from fraud.
Right.
Look, when I come back from the Carabao Cup, for the Carabao Cup, I flew all the way from Dubai to Stansted with a QR code on my phone. I then got the Stansted Express into London to meet the lads with a QR code on my phone. And the only bit of the whole process and the whole weekend that I needed a physical paper ticket for was to get into Wembley. You know, and this, it's got to be the way to go. Sorry, it has to be for me.
Yeah.
Surely the other thing Keith said about data, once they've got a system, they could do lots of things with the data, couldn't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. You know,
can you hear us?
And so
it's not great, George.
Break it up.
All right.
Yeah, you now go for it, George. If
go for it, George.
Well, just my understanding is once all the data is in the system, they could handle things like queues and what have you. So I don't think that would be an issue. Not for me, my understanding.
The challenge with e-ticketing for me would be having every club, if it was for away games in particular, using the same systems. Then how does that work? Because if you've got different clubs using different systems, you might have a challenge. You know, if you're relying on screens of phones to carry QR codes to let you into it through a turnstile, well, that happened with the tickets at Leeds last season, and now look at what we're getting this season because people were getting stuck. I think Josh got stuck in one of the turnstiles for 15 minutes. That must have been bloody petrifying. I wouldn't have been happy in that. I mean, I'm twice his bloody size, but still, you know, it's just it takes a lot of coordination, and every club must have to be on board with it to do this. But it seems to be the way to go because it seems a nonsense that I can go through security checkpoints at airports and then onto a train and get all the way into central London from Dubai without having produced a paper ticket at any stage. And then the only thing I need a paper ticket for is the event I'm going to.
Football.
And it's like football's always the late adopter. That's why they're still using fax machines, you know, for transfers and things like that. But what always seems to be that football, particularly football in England, is a late adopter of technology where technology could help them a lot.
I suppose one of the things they could do with an e-ticketing system, and it's obviously you've got your supporters, you've got your season ticket holders where you've got your card every game that's just automatically programmed. But for this, and I think that's something that Keith was trying to get out there, there's no reason why every member couldn't have, when they, as part of their membership, a little tick box that says, I want to apply for every game. I want to, because most members, I would imagine, would. You know, you could tick a box and say, I want a ticket for every game. So I want to be in the raffle. And then the club could then probably, as you say it, more fairly distribute those tickets on a game by game basis. So, you know, if 30,000 people have applied, then you're one of 30,000 every single time. But you're moving along, you're moving up the queue or whatever. You know, so it doesn't just become a big raffle or who could press the button the quickest or who could have the most screens up, whether it's on an iPad, a phone, a laptop, the wife's phone, whatever. Yeah. So there's that the club could then use if they wanted to make the distribution a little bit fairer. But whether that's a conversation to be had or a conversation that they've already had and either accepted or dismissed, we don't know. It's just me coming off the top of my head thinking, well, what would the benefits be? What additional benefits would there be other than saving a load of paper and helping the environment in that respect? What about from the other aspect? How will it help members who wish to go to a game and wish to be part of the application process? And will it streamline it, make it a little bit easier, make it a little bit fairer? Because I did see somebody on Twitter just today who said that they've been a member all season, they've applied for a ticket for every game and have yet to get to a home game. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that's perhaps something that needs to be thought about. He paid his 35, 40 quid, but he says he hasn't had and hasn't been lucky in the ballot for tickets when they've come on sale because he either couldn't get to a laptop or he just got stuck in a queue of 18,000 and it never budged. So
you would think, Steve, as well. I bet you could use e-ticketing and a digital framework to eradicate touts better.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
well, and to make the, for example, when people have to return tickets, that then suddenly becomes an easier thing to do.
Yeah.
There's no physical rocking up at the box office with a bit of paper.
Yeah.
And I think that is significant. There are so many more things you can do in a digital format that makes things a lot easier and gives more options. However, like I say, for Stu, everything's digital, mate. Chip and pin. Sorry, honestly. There's more options in a digital format to do many different things to make life easier for everybody applying for tickets. However, it's not just about what we do, it's about what other clubs are doing and making sure it's all coordinated and cohesive. And football has a history of showing that when push comes to shove, it's 92 individuals, it's never a we. So I think that's some of the challenges that we've got going on with it. It's wonderful lip service to say, look how green we're going to go and we're going to be ticketless. However, if it creates more of a clusterfuck than it solves, then we've got a problem. And it needs to be thought through and not rushed in.
Lots of people saying in the chat. 2 seconds, George. Lots of people in the chat saying, talking about the internet, which is the biggest problem at St James's Park. There's a lack of Wi-Fi within the ground, and I think there's about 15 people made that very same point. And unless they sort that out, then it is going to be a nightmare. But overall, I'm afraid people don't like change. It's something which everybody's doing now. Everybody is bringing this in, and it's going to happen. So I'm afraid those people who don't have the option will have to get a relative to maybe print the ticket off and show the ticket at the ground. The thing that the club are trying to wipe out is them making tickets, printing tickets off, which you can understand. So when you go to a concert now at the arena, you get a relative, you send them the email, they print it off. And that jobs are good, and you go and take it. That's what happens. Go on, George.
Just to go back to the ticket stub souvenir idea, I've been doing a little bit of research in line with the thing I do for Steve, and some of the things you see on eBay and places like that. Some of the ticket stubs of our more important matches, like the Fairs Cup match, people are looking for 20 quid for them, just for a ticket stub, and getting it, So I can understand what people are saying is that they like the souvenir bit.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, people's drawers will be full of like tickets from days gone by, but that's it's going to become a thing of the past. I mean, we're moving on. Technology changes, and I'm afraid that's it. There'll be other ways of getting souvenirs, programs. For as long as they're relevant, it'll be souvenirs. But I dare say eventually that will go digital as well, because printing a program is become, how many people go and buy a program? A lot of the corporates get one for free. How many actually go and collect it? I never go and collect mine in the Platinum Club when I'm in there. Things change. Go on, Steve. You've got.
I was going to say a lot of EFL clubs no longer have programs. Because of the expense of printing them out, so they did away with programs. It's exactly the same in the Northern League, I think in the lower leagues and out of the lower down the pyramid, the program tended to be something that was just produced by an avid fan who did it as a hobby. I mean, it's the other aspect of it is that interests me is the dialogue or the lack of, and who they had the dialogue with. And yes, they've made a decision, but now how they're going to implement it. And as for the Wi-Fi, well, as Mitch says, it's a QR code. You don't actually need the Wi-Fi for the reader. It's just you've got the QR code and you press it up to the reader. Exactly the same it is with our season tickets when we get it zapped as we go in, and exactly the same way as your phone. They don't seem to have any problem with the Wi-Fi when it comes to actually allowing you to buy beer or crisps or coffee or whatever. So that aspect of the Wi-Fi. I think more people are worried that they can't actually use their phone to get messages and send messages. And we were having this conversation on Sunday at the match, and we were saying, have you noticed how you no longer get the messages coming up telling you that somebody's got to report to the RVI maternity hospital because the wife's having a bairn? And then the lad behind us who we're chatting to, and he went, well, you'd think it would be even worse now, he says, because he wouldn't get a signal to get a message from their wife.
That's right. That's right. Right. But they say it's blockers, isn't it? That's what they say.
Yeah.
Mike Ashley put them in
to stop betting, isn't it? Is it stop the?
That's what Mike Ashley to stop us saying bad things about him when he was there, isn't it?
I got told more realistically, it's to stop people putting a bet on to say Newcastle all over somebody. So
there has to be a delay.
If they back the team, I think it's to stop you saying, look, are they all over Southampton? Get a bet on Newcastle to score next.
I think Keith, there has to be a delay, like there is at race courses as well,
right?
Because you can have fractional delays in terms of broadcast. For example, if you look on the IPTV that I use out here, and sometimes get a Newcastle game or any game on it in 4 different streams, and they're all at a different time. They're all at a different point in the game, and it's never by more than 20 seconds. Yeah. But for smart people, that's enough to make a bet. That's enough to make a difference.
That's enough time. That's enough time for Joe Walker to send you a message to get in there, and you still sit watching the match, and Joe's telling you they've just scored.
I think there was a case in the West End, though, wasn't there, quite a few years ago now, where a couple from the Far East were murdered, and it transpired as part of the prosecution case that they were involved in some gambling scam over in the Far East, where they were immediately sending the message to say that there'd been a goal at a game, and then the money was being piled on at the other end, and that was all of a sudden something went wrong. There was loads of money left, according to if I remember rightly, loads of money lost, and then some triad came along and chopped them up or something. This is exactly what
I thought you were going to turn around and say they found out he was dead and they put a bet on it for you.
No.
I bet he dies in the next 5 minutes.
No, what's he like?
Okay, lots of comments coming in the chat. Let's change subject. Eric, this is a good one, actually, and it was on my list of potential talking points. What do you think of this Tindall carry-on? It's going on a bit far, don't you think, says Eric. Mad Dog Tindall. Mitch, start with you on this one. Mad Dog Tindall. Basically, Eddie was asked about it in the press conference today.
Absolutely love it, and let's have more of it. Sorry, ignore, damn the torpedoes, crack on. Keep doing what you're doing. If they're talking about you, you're doing it right. If they're whinging about you, you're doing it right. It even got a message on American television when Eddie Howe was interviewed on American TV. If anybody's seen the clips on YouTube, and not in so much, not in quite in such a in-your-face way, but the hints and insinuations were still there. Dark arts, my arts, everybody does it. What they found is somebody who was sublime at it, and they're all jealous. And you know what? Keep winding them up, because if they're talking about Tindall, they're missing things on the pitch. If they're talking about Tindall, they're missing what Eddie Howe's doing. If they're talking about Tindall, they're missing so much. And and he's quite happy, and I'm quite sure he's quite happy just from the look in his eyes to be front and centre of all of this. And it's not just dark art, it's pure alchemy, and let's have more of it, lads.
Steve?
Well, it's just something else for to be talked about, and it's keeping the press happy as well, isn't it? It's keeping social media happy. It's a nothing tale, nothing story. A bit of fun, a nickname that's been conjured up, I think, among the squad, and then some certain members of the fan base hooked onto it quite a while ago. I think one of the players described him as that once. And now all of a sudden, the national press have decided, well, they can't do it on time waste anymore because they've proved that Arsenal waste more time than us and did in the last game. So now let's see if there's something else we can get. And that they don't want to blame Eddie Howe. So that let's go for his number 2. Let's say he's the man who's doing all this. He's the joker in the pack, if you like, that we can then throw something at, because they're all desperate to get us on something, aren't they? They're all desperate to do something to rock the boat. We heard them last week doing exactly the same. And I thought that it'll probably come up later on when we talk about the game tomorrow. But I thought Fat Sham's response to the time wasting story was absolutely brilliant. I thought he nailed it absolutely. Who said it? He does it. Who said it? He does it. Who said it? He does it. We all do it. Just a little bit of honesty for once, but a great way to kill a conversation, a great way to kill the story, because he doesn't want to be accused of himself either. And he knows he's playing us tomorrow. So he'd probably be using exactly the same dark arts if they happen to be leading with 5 minutes to go. And he'll probably be screaming if we're doing it and we're ahead with 5 minutes to go. So all good stuff.
Did you
good point from Eric here. He goes, are you not worried though that Tindall now can't act himself if the cameras and social media are constantly on him? Which is a good point. I mean, look, Eddie Howe talked about it today in the press conference. He said that had a half an hour chat and had a good laugh about it. And then he explained, he says, we've been together for a long, long time. And, from my perspective, we know each other's strengths, we know each other's weaknesses, and we know our own strengths and weaknesses, is more or less what he was saying. And I understand that my job is to set out the training schedule and to do the team talks, and my job is to watch the game and go in at half time and say what I need to say. He says each of the coaching staff have their own positions and have their own, we're all on the same team sheet, but they all have their own jobs to do, is what he said, Steve. So, I don't think they'll be worried. I don't think there'll be any change. The cameras are on these people, and if he breaks the rules, he'll get punished.
Exactly. And I think Tindall's job is to protect Eddie Howe. He's there as his number 2. He's the buffer, So, if the manager gets into trouble, then it can really, really affect the team. When it's one person, one place down from the manager, then it maybe doesn't affect the team as much. It just takes that little bit of pressure away. So, fair enough. Carry on.
Yeah, George. I mean, that if it's not dark arts, it's said Tindall's overshadowing Howe. Again, it's just it's another media hoo-ha and social media hoo-ha. And I like the way that he described it, because there's been a Twitter account set up apparently, which is something along the lines of Jason Tindall. Loves himself so much, or whatever it was called, and wants to be the center of attention. And he said, "Do you want to be the center? Does he want to be the center of attention?" He said, "Well, he's actually a good-looking guy." And when he gets his photograph taken, he's got a nice smile, which was all good banter. But I mean, he says, "I don't do social media myself," and he said, he says we get sent a lot of these things, and he says Jason's been sent a lot of these things, and he's taken it in the spirit that it should be taken, I guess.
Well, as the old hand on here, I've got to say what I love about it is they're talking about Newcastle United. And that's what I want people to do, to talk about my football club, because it's bloody great. And if Tindall doing that gets them talking, well, as Neil said, let's have more of it. Don't shy away from it. Don't let them say that they've pushed you down or they've crumpled away. Just have a go and keep doing it. And it takes the weight off Eddie Howe. It takes the weight off players. They'd be fishing around to get players. It takes the weight off players a little bit. But for me, the most important thing is it's got them talking about Newcastle United, and that's so important. I think the more they're talking about us, well, fine. and it's not the sort of chat that would upset the players on the field or in training. In fact, they'll be having a quiet laugh about it. Most of them, I would guess, about Mad Dog. They'll be pulling his leg mercilessly, but it'll be good banter. It'll be positive banter. So yeah, do it, and we'll give you more just to satisfy you. Is how I would put it. It's very positive for me. Because it means that if they're talking about us, they're not talking about anybody else.
Oh, yeah. Keith, your thoughts?
Well, it looks like you put me on the tail end of this conversation.
Hey, stop mentioning dogs.
Well,
Mad dog.
I thought I should on it, and then you're sitting there, you're going on about mad dogs. And you say, don't mention this on the show tonight. And then you put.
But to be honest, with Tindall and Eddie Howe, mate, I expect to win a lot.
Well,
Hey.
me too. But I think I'm getting the rough end because I'm sitting first next to you, Mr. Wraith, and then he's putting his back to front. So I think it's a bit dodgy. But I tell you where I come from. I tell you where I come from. I come from an era where I watched people like, and I'll name a few: John McNamee, Billy Whitehurst, Brian Kilcline. And then, and to a lesser degree, like Barry Venison, where they just take you off waist height. And them was the people who are just got out my seat for and thought them people just awesome. And I look at Dan Burn the same way now. I think that people going about, he's this, that, he's been found out. What an exceptional season that lad's had. What an absolutely brilliant season. And I look at when all the last few games has been all these fisticuffs. And our players are standing toe to toe with everybody. And people go like, on Saturday we're going to get kicked off the pitch in Leeds. Well, come on, let's see, let's do it, because I think we're as good and as strong as anybody. But when you go to a manager and you see someone like him, I think I read something the other day from Martin Keown where he said Arsenal away at the Emirates. I was at that game and he played hell at the tactics we employed and said we were disgraceful. Well, I was at the Emirates, and I'll tell you something, point blank, we did not get away with as much pathetic time waste. I thought 5 Arsenal players at the weekend were hit by a sniper rifle because they were just falling over, and it was embarrassingly bad. I wouldn't have liked that if that had been Newcastle, but everyone says we all do it. Where I'm coming from is that I think Tindall. I look at Lascelles. I mean, I think he's added to my love for him when he's getting booked twice when he's not even playing. And I just think myself, all he was doing was just not grabbing the ball in a hurry. But who would grab the ball in a hurry when somebody else has got to throw in? That's up to them to go and get the ball, or it's up to the ball boy. But I think Pope has been treated by referees this season dramatically different to what the Arsenal kick was on Sunday. I think Pope's been booked time and time again for supposed time wasting. I thought that kid on Sunday was embarrassing. So I tell you what it is. What goes round comes round. Whatever Newcastle do, call it dark arts, call it weird, I call it jealousy. But I think Newcastle are just being extremely competitive. I think the ball's maybe out to play more because they cannot run at our pace and run at our pressing speeds. Newcastle's here. We're hurting everybody. We're 2 years ahead of our time. It's pissing people off. Get over it, because Newcastle are doing what every black and white fan wants to see, and that's competing. And I remember when the takeover went through and everybody said, what do you want from your team? And the one thing I said, I want to see us compete again. And I think we compete. I think the players compete. But I think where Eddie Howe is, he's like a PR genius when they talk to him. He does what you'll never get a reaction out of him like you got out the Strattons and the Kenny Dalglish of the world who tried to play with the cameras. Eddie Howe just has the articulate, perfect response every time. However, there's times when you need to rough it up and gruff it up. And if it weren't for Graham Jones, when Steve Bruce was in charge, there wasn't a pulse on our bench. It was all down to Graham, as I can see. So now I see Tindall being the perfect foil and the best friend to have his manager's back. I think the man's outstanding, and I love what he does, and don't stop doing it.
Tinfoil.
Would you say, Keith?
What did I say? What did I say? I was saying.
I'm saying, would you say that Pope's been excommunicated by the refereeing fraternity?
Say that again. Was Pope what?
Excommunicated by the refereeing fraternity.
I can't.
Sorry, I'll go and get me coat.
He's probably been picked on. But I'm not going to talk about mad dogs or white dogs or hairy dogs or anything tonight. And I'm not going to.
Okay. It's a blessing in disguise that you didn't hear that anyway. But moving on. One thing I would add though, Steve,
was you the Irish? Was you on about the Catholic Pope?
Yeah, 4 games to go. And you know what? We're still one of the only clubs that hasn't been fined for indiscipline. So are they trying to make another signal to the referees like they did last week about the time wasting? Is pressure now being put on the fourth official to keep his eye on what's going on? And also, I don't know whether the other amazing stat that got me was Arsenal haven't had a player sent off this season. It'll be the first time, I think, in Premier League history that a team's gone through an entire season without having a player sent off. Somebody's come up with that figure. And again, where's that come from? Has that come from the Manchester press, who are now trying to put pressure on Arsenal? Does it come from, who knows? But these I want to talk about dark arts. This is the press dark arts that we're looking at. This is other clubs, the dark arts being devised and being worked on behalf of other clubs by members of the press. So I would not be surprised if it was just a little nudge to the fourth official to keep your eye on what's going on the bench, on the touchline. So that's something that maybe people can throw and give their comments on. But nothing would surprise me, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, okay. We are going to go for Tweet of the Week. And lawyers representing Steve Hasty have applied to the Supreme Court for an adjournment in the lookalike section. Hasty commented, "They are nothing like me. It's KP to blame."
Correct.
See, there's a theme. There's always a theme. Glamping pods in Sunderland.
Very good.
And this keeps running. Best make ourselves scarce tonight, lads. They'll be out celebrating after Sunderland got into the playoffs.
Absolutely brilliant.
And Penny Mordaunt is offside. I did laugh at that one, Rob. That was a classic. Those of you who might have seen that Luton have gained promotion, Luton Town are currently third in the championship, and this is the entrance to the away end. I had a few of them. That was definitely the best one. This was great as well. It took me a moment. The window cleaner, Mr. Bit.
Oh, very good.
Oh, dear.
And tweet of the week from Steve Brackley Mag. Restroom is for eating customers only.
Very good.
I bet Mitch can add something to that.
Couple of rear end tweets now. They say a banana a day cleans your colon. Then I find out you're not meant that you're meant to eat them.
So window cleaner back.
Oh dear.
And freaking hate public toilets when you go in and a vegan has left a floater. Whoa, Black Betty, Bambalam.
That's very good.
Anybody on here with knowledge regarding noisy dishwashers? I've tried flowers, chocolates, and wine, and she's still moaning.
I'm saying no. My missus is watching.
Apologies to all women in the chat.
Yeah.
Every morning, Stan wakes up at the crack of dawn.
Oh, dear.
That looks a bit like George. It could have been a look like that. And Scottish bar stool for kilts. That'll definitely be weird. A couple of musical ones now. Blondie Roundabout, One Way or Another. I'm going to find you. I'm going to get you.
Get you.
And a Rama Lama Ding Dong.
Oh.
Musical one from Jimmy. Sinead O'Connor, Bird Watching. It's been 7 hours and 15 days.
Go on, Stevie Wraith, lad. Knock it out, son.
Free Grout, Le Freak, C'est Chic. And back at your Liverpool, said Mozza. You'll never walk alone at the Coronation concert. Oh, the irony in response, of course, to the
Unbelievable.
Anfield fans booing the national anthem. Princess Anne just rocked up, having overdone it on the Jaeger bombs last night. And another royal one. Ant and Deck, which one of you did this, you naughty boys?
Very good.
And Lawsy. I know a lot of people will think I'm showing off, but when you work hard, you deserve to treat yourself. I can't express the happiness I'm feeling right now. White was the only colour that I had, and I would have preferred blue, but it doesn't matter. I went for it, and I've just purchased these 4 garden chairs. And I bet it's called almond milk because no one can say nut juice with a straight face, said Tim. Gandalf came into my shop, said Dunnell, and asked, do I get any money off for having this big stick? I said, no, I'm sorry. We don't do staff discounts.
Oh, dear.
Thanks for that one, Dunnell. Never gave up. Charlie's failed defence class 14 times now, but he doesn't give up. What a legend. And Charlie says, if you support Sunderland, you probably have nits and stinker piss. When your cat finds you dead, that's basically what a cat would do, by the way. That is brilliant. That was excellent. And the beauty of wearing club merchandise in public, said Mayan Jabu, said this gentleman identified me in a big crowd because of my polo shirt. He told me that he grew up with Gail Big Riama and that he has been a supporter for 20 years. The Newcastle Uganda fan base is growing steadily. I had lots of pictures like that, but that is very good, mate. Great results for Chelsea, said Harry. If they hang on, massive 3 points, they'll be chuffed. They've all but guaranteed their place in next season's Premier League. And I put up with all your shit, and the only time you hug me is when you're drunk.
Oh.
And the Black Garter at 9 a.m, St James's Park, 4:30 p.m, and this is the result.
That was class, that one.
He's actually used one of War Flags to wrap up in there.
Himself up.
Where's the stewards?
Was that during the game? That I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw the video where he's moving about. So there's actually a bloke laid in there during the game.
Where's the stewards? Yeah. Where is the stewards? Anyway,
well,
there they are.
There's the steward. Well, they're not. That's the other set of stewards.
There they are. And there's the kid. You seen the young'un?
Aye.
Yeah. Fan of the week by a lot of people on Twitter. Parents today, text me when you get there. Text me the names of the kids who are there. Text me when you're coming home. Parents in the 80s. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
It's all right, that.
Well, this news has cheered me right up. Get in, said Rafferty's Jukebox. Newcastle are the most disliked team in the Premier League.
That's it.
Last couple. Always first with fact-based information, says Stephen Kennedy. A majority of archaeologists are women due to their natural ability to dig up the past. Keith, you're laughing there. Your lass is watching. Disney teaches to hate stepmothers. Pornhub takes a completely different approach. And finally, here he is, the artist formerly known as Prince.
Charlie.
That was tweet of the week from Rocky. Thanks, mate.
Well.
We had to finish on a royal one, but keep them coming in. Send them to me. Send them to Zara. And as people said on the show, we've trimmed it down a little bit this week, only a little bit. But thanks for sending them in.
Can I ask an innocent question? Was that a King Charles Spaniel on the last picture?
It probably was.
I'm just asking.
Now, there was somebody who used to stand on our sidelines who used to say, there's a player in there somewhere talking about Joe Linton. Well, he's been talking about Newcastle again, Steve Bruce Keith. To be honest, he didn't say a great deal in his interview on the Manchester United official podcast. This is, of course, the guy who, when Eddie Howe came to the club, he
recommended him.
Well, he's changed his tune because originally he called him the fella from Bournemouth who got a team relegated. Before he then started to take the claim that it was him who suggested him, which is utter bull. But never mind. Anyway, he did speak a little bit, and thankfully from our perspective, Eddie Howe did come along. The fella from Bournemouth came and saved us from the fella from Corbridge. But a couple of snippets from it. He said he always knew that it was going to be and would be difficult as Newcastle manager, but I was determined to take the chance. He said he knew all along it was going to be difficult, and it certainly was. He said when he sees where the club are now and the quality of players who are playing, then they've done remarkably well. And they've put people in place to run the club, and they've bought well, and it's gone from strength to strength in 12 months. He said, I am pleased. I am genuinely pleased because the city of Newcastle needs that. As a club, it probably needs that, but it was a difficult time when I was manager. That is for sure. And that is all he said. But, he was asked about Newcastle, so I guess he had to talk about Newcastle. But he's always going to be judged and looked upon by Newcastle fans. I see a few getting the knickers in a twist on social media already about it. But he's in what past. You just move on, Keith, don't we? Really.
You do. But when a guy is born in the region, so he's got a postcode like what you class in the Newcastle area, and he puts a scarf on and says, everything I need, I can get at Sunderland. You set yourself up. It's a choice you make. You're drawing a line, and so that's a choice. He made a choice that day, and I think guess what he did was he thought, well, I'm not going to get the Newcastle job at any time. I've got the Sunderland job, so what I'll do is I'll knock Newcastle in the process. I've got a great memory. I don't forget when we beat them 5-1. That he also had he had a song that he wanted to play against the Newcastle fans, and so what he's doing, he's caught in controversy, and he always made it clear that he had a tune, a song that they were going to play at Sunderland when they beat us, kind of thing. When you do that, because there's other managers. How many times you see managers that manage against the boyhood clubs and they act with dignity? You see players not celebrate when they go back to the old clubs. And these are all choices people make. But Steve Bruce made that choice. And he made a poor choice because then, lo and behold, one day he got the job. When he came, I'll remember that as somebody who gave people more days off than any other manager in our history. And I'll give a memory of people that he didn't develop. And in that, I put Shah, I put Joe Linton, I put people like Murphy. For whatever you think of Fraser, he did zero with them, and he seemed to improve a bit when Howe came. But the biggest gripe I've got with Steve Bruce as a manager is what he did with Sean Longstaff. And at the time, I was talking to the club, and I spoke to the people who were running it, and I said, we're struggling week in, week out, and you've got a kid there that everybody, the players, were saying was the best lad in training, and that was Sean Longstaff. But both him and Matty used to go to the club on a daily basis. And I know this is fact. And he used to just blank them and ignore them. To do that to people who's 21, 22, 23-year-old is just pure bullying in my eyes. And it just doesn't lie with me. I just think to myself, I can't think of any staff. I've managed teams of hundreds of people. And I can't think of anybody where I would go in. And just because people wouldn't sign a contract or didn't do as I don't think it's do as you say. I think it's be talked into doing what I want you to do when I want you to do it. I think what you do is you deal with that and sit them down and say, what is the differences? Can we resolve it? But he just bullied Sean Longstaff. If ever you read, things Sean Longstaff's done, he'll confirm it. And Sean Longstaff's mental health was smashed when Howe took over. The first thing he had to do was repair his mental health. And anybody will tell you that you can never get a player to perform when he's on the bottom like that kid was. So I think that he plays the victim time and time again. It's amazing how many clubs he's gone to and he's stood and argued and chewed and nearly fought with his own fans. That's happened since he's left Newcastle. He's done that. The two clubs I know of, certainly did at West Brom. And I find him a bit of a bully and I find him a victim. And so he's not somebody that I'd rush. People say he's a nice bloke. He might be, but in my eyes, he's not. He bullied two kids. If you look at Sean Longstaff now, to me, he's the nearest we've got to like a Carrick or a Milner, Liverpool, Man United. He's He's that player that's unsold, untold. He doesn't get the credit for what he does. And I've took pelters for 2 years on here about what a great player he is. And when a manager sees a team skirt with relegation, treats a kid with that kind of potential like he did, I think the man's an idiot. So I've got no respect for the man at all. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fair enough. George, Steve Bruce, he's not relevant in our story. He's part of our history now.
Yeah, thank goodness. I mean, I struggled like Keith to get past his great announcement when he took over at Sunderland. Best fans in the world, best directors in the world, best stadium in the Northeast, best academy in the Northeast. I've got it all, and I'm the manager, and why would I want to be anywhere else, even 15 miles up the road? Direct implications that Sunderland was better than Newcastle United.
Yeah,
then eventually gets the job, and he doesn't retract any of that. He just carries on as though it didn't happen. And the minute after he walked in the door, I thought, this is an absolute disaster. I mean, he went to Hong Kong. We're on Hong Kong pre-season tour, and he went out to Hong Kong as manager. And within an hour of getting off the plane, he had them running 3-kilometer races in the streets, you know, just to supposedly just get them fit. When some of them, the last thing they should have been doing was running 3 kilometers in one go anyway. Not the sort of training they needed. And I thought, yeah, we've got a dinosaur, and that's how he's going to treat when he did. I mean, everything he did for me was out of a textbook, 50 years old in terms of training and so on. And it was just so depressing, and you could see what was coming. And then you add to that the fact that you know, he claimed or tried to claim that he could get players to do things because of his man management skills. I never seen any evidence of any man management skills with that man at all. And so yeah, he's gone, and thank goodness he's gone.
Well said, George. Well said.
He gets a ride out of claiming all sorts of things as well, which you know, even turns us even further away from us. So I've no doubt when the book comes out, he'll have a different chapter for Newcastle United to the one he's been spouting for the last couple of years. And I, for one, will not be reading it.
Well said, George.
Cabbage Heed, says Michael Clark, Steve. But yeah, he's back in the news again, isn't he? As I say, he's going to answer questions when he's asked about things, but you know, it's not really relevant to us. I don't think it's worth it, us working ourselves into a frenzy about somebody who's in the past, along with Joe Kinnear and Alan Pardew.
No, if he was such a good manager coming to his so-called hometown club and couldn't even achieve success, very disappointing, I would imagine, for him. It was certainly disappointing for us. He was out of his depth. He never really. He went into a shell, you know, like everybody else at the football club did at that particular time. He never came out of it. He never interacted with the fans. There wasn't a. I mean, I hear people saying there's a warm side to him, there's a pleasant side to him. We never actually saw that as supporters. It was never on the agenda. He always seemed to be in a blame culture, and it was blame everyone but himself. And at another time, would it have been any different? I very much doubt it.
No.
You've used the word dinosaur. You've used the word old school. For me, he was never a Newcastle United supporter. He was very much he went away. He went to Gillingham. He went to Norwich. He went to Manchester United. Once he was at Manchester United, that's where he was embedded for the next 40 years. And even though he managed Crystal Palace, he managed. Did he manage Wigan? He managed
Wigan, Birmingham,
Huddersfield. At times, you know, it was always a case of, you know, his heart was at Manchester United. He was one of the few actually at Man United, playing wise, that actually got into management and had relative success, if that's what you can call it, because basically he had this ability to move from job to job to job to job and pick up very, very decent money without winning anything. So you know, good luck to him. He's part of our history, and as far as I'm concerned, we're far better off now. And it was if he had anything about him, he would have been able to do something at his hometown club if it really was his hometown club. I don't think it was.
Manchester United for me was always his club. I'll never change my opinion on that. I always feel that he had a close affinity, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's his choice. But and I've got to be honest, Neil, he never ever came out and said he supported Newcastle. I can't find an interview. He always used to see his mum and dad did. You know what I mean? So he's never lied about that.
No, do you know what it is though? Here I am being forced to waste more minutes of my time on that daft fucking nagger. Really? His history, and let it go. We should just ignore, move on, and let's talk about Tindall and his antics. Let's talk about how fit our players are now. Let's talk about the kind of positive things that we'll want to keep rolling. I really don't want to waste another breath on that man.
One undying memory for me, just to go back to him, is here we've got a match where one of the most expensive and talented players in my squad gets an injury, and my manager's standing on the touchline shouting, "Run it off, run it off." When he could be doing untold damage to his legs and knees and God knows what. And my manager's shouting, "Run it off." You could hear him in the stands. Pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely bonkers. But that's the way it goes with Steve Bruce. Let's hope we don't need to talk about Steve again in the near future. Okay, halfway through the show, and it's time for the ads. A big shout out to all our sponsors. Thanks to Skips and Bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from their website, mrvickys.co.uk, or by calling 01768 210 102. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video technology. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. If you enjoy the show, please hit the little thumb under the video and like the video. Click share to share to your other social media, or subscribe. It's free, and we do 7 shows a week. If you want to become a member, you can click join underneath this video. There are different packages to suit all different pockets. And if you want to become a cult member, then put your smartphone over the QR code. It'll take you straight there to the website, which is NUFCmatters.com. If you go in via the website, just click membership pack. What do you get for your money? You get a pen, you get a cup, you get a membership card and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. Don't forget, we are available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. And we also support the food bank on this show. NUFCfansfoodbank.co.uk is where you'll find the matchday bucket. You can make a virtual donation today. We've also got some events coming up over the next couple of months. An evening with Peter Beardsley at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets available from newcastlelegends.com, or go to Voucher and get a 40% discount. Our end of season do is the 27th of May at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are a tenner from NUFCmatters.com. An evening with Gavin Peacock takes place on July the 10th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets from NUFCmatters.com for that event. And the following night, Gavin will be at the Tynemouth Surf Cafe. Go to their website for ticket information. We've got a vast range of t-shirts, merchandise and memorabilia available at our website. The Isaac t-shirt is doing well. Go to NUFCmatters.com to buy one today. Okay, as always, we have plenty to get through on this show. We will be looking ahead, of course, to the Leeds game towards the end of the show. A lot of questions already coming in for that. But first of all, plug your ears if you hate it. Keep your fingers out your ears if you love this music. It's the Diamond. The day I'm out, we're asking to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle United. And Steve Hasty, thanks for sending this in. Les Ferdinand and your kid.
That's right. There he is. That was back at the old Maiden Castle days, Steve.
Yeah,
great stuff. I can feel a few lookalikes coming on for your brother maybe next week.
I think you're right. Just a big shout out as well to Sonny, by the way. He's going in for his ACL operation tomorrow. So that's my nephew. So
good luck, Sonny.
Good luck, Sonny.
And then a bit of what 8-9 months recuperation and get him back to playing again and turn out for Blythe. So looking forward to that. Okay,
the question is, what kind of dog does your kid look like, Steve?
I'm saying now he used to have a red setter though.
Quality. Okay, thanks for sending that in, mate. Great stuff. If you've got a photo with you with somebody from Newcastle United, past or present, send it to me at Steve Wraith on Twitter or on Facebook, and we will feature you on the show. Stephen, no, we won't be doing any best ofs. We don't do them. Not something I'm looking to do. And I think, we tend to have the summer and give Steve a bit of a break in the summer, to be perfectly honest. It would take a long time as well to go through all them dogs.
Put us in the kennels in the summer, don't you, Steve?
I'll put you in the kennels in the summer. That's right.
Hey, we've just been talking about Steve Bruce there. Hey, he could be in line for another job because he's just come up on the TV that Nagelsmann's not in consideration for Tottenham. So maybe Bruce will end up at Tottenham.
He's the only man, isn't he?
He is. He's the only one.
He is. Balkan Mag says, what do you think about leadership meetings that Trippier talked about? I presume this was on one of those interviews. Well, I certainly haven't heard. Has anybody heard this?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay, let's go with you two guys at the bottom then.
Mitch, you go.
Yeah, I mean, in that high performance podcast, we talked about leadership group and that the individuals involved with the leadership group, which doesn't seem to be unusual with many Premier League teams these days, but very interesting to see how people come and go from it and how people are involved in it and what they try and do and how they try and, again, be affecting the managerial team, try and sort stuff out for players, be an example to other players, be a shoulder to cry on for other players, be a source of help and resource for help for other players. And you kind of almost wouldn't expect anything less from someone like Kieran Trippier to be involved in something like that, would you?
No. Absolutely. I think the leadership group we've got was Trippier and Byrne, Ritchie, Wilson, and Lascelles. I think that was the five. That's the five that basically are the eyes and ears for the players. It's the point of contact. It used to happen years ago in squads in the dressing room. There's always somebody there and we've got 5 characters there. 5 characters that very strong characters, very strong-willed characters, command a presence. And that's what makes a good dressing room. When you've got people with presence, when you've got people with attitude, but you've also got people who are seasoned in the game, have seen everything, but probably all 5 see different things, different aspects of what goes on, and that can only be to the benefit of Eddie Howe and Mad Dog Tindall, because that's how they lead. But great, it was great. It's a very good podcast to listen to as well. I was very impressive. Yeah,
it's an hour and 40 or something like that. It's worth taking the time out of your day to do it.
Yeah,
it really is a very, very, very good and frank and open discussion, and I think it's a great insight into the evolution in Newcastle United under the new ownership as well. I think it really is worth spending your time having a listen, and it explains a lot of the subtle things that you sometimes catch little glimpses of on the pitch between the players and things going on, and it's like, this now really, really, really fleshes some of those things out. It's a fantastic thing.
Yeah, I'd recommend anyone who has a youngster who's interested in football and interested in a career in football to listen to what Kieran said about his formative days as a junior, the rejection, how it affected him, but how he carried on.
Yeah.
Rejection from Manchester City, rejection at Barnsley, the rejection at Tottenham, even though he was in the team and he played in a Champions League. I think he played in the semi-final and possibly a final. But the rejection that came when he said, all of a sudden you realise with the manager that your days are numbered. And how does a player cope with that? And it just shows you that, no matter what as a footballer kicks you and knocks you down, there's always an opportunity that's around the corner if you act right and that type of thing. And I think that's another example of something that Keith was saying about Sean Longstaff. He was down on the floor, but next thing you know, he's back. Yeah, his whole presence is now vital to Newcastle United, and this is the sort of thing that Kieran Trippier and the rest of the team will have made sure that they've done over the last 18 months, 2 years, and longer to get players like Sean because they're vital to the squad and make sure that if they have problems. So really, really good to hear, and what an inspiring captain we obviously have. And you know what? I'd love to think that, and we see it time and time again. Somebody's probably going to put it about Richie out with a knee injury and his contract's up, and he would be great for the youngsters moving on and that type of thing. But in Kieran Trippier, I think you've got someone who I would really be pleased to see had a long-term career at Newcastle United and worked his way up, because I think he's a very intelligent, very clever lad, very grounded. And sometimes somebody like that does end up making the best manager.
Yeah, interesting stuff. I'll give it a listen. Just wondering if Neil's got any info on new sponsorships. I don't want to lose this comment. So Sean asked the question. I presume there's nothing new as yet.
Nothing on top of what Stu and I discussed the other week. There's still, I can still tell you who it isn't, but I still can't get the name of who it is. My understanding is it's being held back until we know what our European fate is. And so that would suggest there's bonuses and other things tied in with that.
Yeah.
So
Steve,
it's exciting times though, that it's very clear from the club and from conversations I know people have had with the club that absolutely everything's up for grabs, and they're going to be very smart in maximising income streams over the next few months.
Yes, George, go for it.
Just to go to this player group. There was a player group when Ashley was there, and it used to drive Ashley mad, didn't it? Because it included the likes of Joey Barton and Steve Harper and people like that. Yeah. And Ashley was desperate to know what they were talking about, and that caused all sorts of problems as well. But so it's not new, and you can go even further back. There was a senior group around the time that Joe Harvey joined the club in the late 40s, because he got into a dispute with the management, and he went on strike. He went on strike for nearly 6 months, and it was the senior player group that got round and got work with him and persuaded him to get out off the fence and join in again. So it's not new. It's been happening for a while, but
it's common. It's common at all levels of football.
But at the moment, I think to hear the names involved in what they're doing it just reinforces what we see on the pitch and off the pitch at the moment. It's just great, absolutely great.
Yeah, Kieran Trippier. I think the most revealing thing that was put out in the press from that interview. Again, I've not listened to the interview, but I did see the reports about him coming in and taking a pay cut to come to Newcastle, which I guess it shot Simon Jordan down in flames a little bit, because he said he was only coming for the money.
Only coming for the money. Was you did right when you look at people like that, to put it on in perspective. You talk about Dan Burn, Trippier, Wilson, Richie, and Lascelles, and you look at them, and there's only out of them 2 of them starting every week. And with Wilson 3, because he's been interchanged with Isaac. But Richie and Lascelles aren't anywhere near. It just shows the value in the dressing room of people who aren't playing but who stay focused and part of the group. And then from that, you hope what you develop is people that come through from behind it. So you'd hope that 5 group, because I would imagine a couple of them might leave this year, and if they do, you hope the likes of Botman, Joe Linton, Sean Longstaff, and the likes of Murphy and people like that, because Murphy showed great spirit, and when the lads talked about in Saudi Arabia, the lads on the show, they said like he was an absolute peach of a person, you know what I mean? He was a gem of a kid, and when you hear that in someone who's not been getting his game, and then you see him get his game and perform, it just shows you that the camaraderie and the togetherness of the Newcastle squad is what has carried us over the line, and that's probably why we top 4 is not just skill alone and not just coaching. It's probably that team spirit and the ethic that they've created. So you go to the person they talk about is Kieran Trippier. I think he's the single most important signing Newcastle's made in the last 5 years. I think he's the one. He's the one that created everything. So we never underestimate that. And when you look at him, you see Trippier and you think, well, for Christ's sake, and I'm like a bit of a romantic. I look back to Liverpool of where there was like, there was people like Shankly sat on that bench, and then along in that same remit become the Fagans and all them people that came through Liverpool's ranks were part of that old team, the Sammy Lees and all them and Dalglish. Like, if you like, it was a production line of people that kept Liverpool at the top for years when money wasn't a deciding factor. And I just look at Newcastle and I think there's got to be jobs for people like Trippier. And there's another lad I'll mention. We've come back on the train from the Arsenal game, and there was a kid on the train had gone from Newcastle. He'd gone out the game 5 minutes early. He went to the airport for 35 quid a taxi. Was told the flight was cancelled, but it had been cancelled at 2 o'clock that day. He got a 35 quid taxi back to the train station, and then was getting on the train home. He had a 7-year-old with him, and the kid was decked out in Newcastle. This lad was from Portsmouth, obviously sound like a Cockney, and he sat amongst as many Arsenal people as us, and he had this black and white scarf on, and he was asking, like, how you get here and how you get there, and he says, Newcastle fans today have been brilliant. And he was talking like us in Newcastle, and he said, I've just come up with a bear, and he says he's Newcastle daft, and he says we get looked after. He says one of our friends is involved on the playing side. So I thought he was going to mention someone I never heard of. He'd come up from Portsmouth because he's one of Matt Ritchie's best friends. And in the next 5 minutes, he talked about a bloke. He said he's the absolute ultimate professional. He said eats, drinks, sleeps, breathes Newcastle. He has done since he come here. And he said what Matt Ritchie had said is Newcastle's a far better place when you come than what you perceive from the outside. And he talked about a club that was just in his blood. And I said, for me, I said, his legs are going. I say it's like he's to that age when you want him to be, the age of Longstaff, because he has a great heart on him. And he said, but surely they'll put him through his badges, and surely they keep him at the club, and keep him in the squad next year, but then bring him into coaching. Because if you saw Matt Ritchie on that bench, and he's so instrumental, he's one of the 5 golden jewels of the dressing room, surely then becomes a natural. And if you see how many we recruit an enormous amount of scouts, surely we need coaches, and surely like in the same way Joey Barton still has an affinity with the club and the fans, surely that Trippier and Matt Ritchie are no-brainers to get a coaching role at Newcastle.
Wouldn't surprise me to see Matt Ritchie is our under-23 player manager next season.
Yeah, I'd love that. I'd love it, and I'd love Trippier. I'd love Trippier to like, if he's 32, I'd love him to be looked after next year, the year after, till he's 34-year-old, like Wilson is this year. Brought on and off with other players so he lasts longer.
Well, wasn't Eddie Howe talking about Ritchie again today? I'm sure I've seen something on Twitter where he was saying how he's trained harder this year, if it was possible, than he has for ages, and he was very impressed at how he coped with the training regimes, and how impressed he'd kept his pecker up while he wasn't playing, and encouraged all the others. So he was speaking volumes about Matt Ritchie again today.
I mean, when he was injured, when Trippier was injured, when Ritchie was injured, the thing that I like is they're on all them photographs. And like when Trippier went to the dressing room with his cast on kind of thing, you just look and you think, you know, they go on and say about, your plastic fabricated photographs. But for me, you know, that's why we're in the top four. We're in the top four because we're getting the right kind of football, the right kind of people. So it's okay having a great instrument, but you can't get a tune out of it. It's worthless. That squad today epitomizes Mad Dog, dare I say the second word, and it epitomizes Eddie Howe. It's what they've created, and they've created something special in Newcastle. And then that's why it'd be an absolute crying shame if this team doesn't get Champions League this season, because I don't think as a fan base, we fully, earlier in the season, engaged with the difference between winning a cup and getting Champions League qualification. One would be great because it's been such a long time and wait. One would be an absolute leap forward in terms of stature and in terms of kind of people that want to come to Newcastle. There's some players, be call them right or wrong, will only come to the Champions League squad. And Klopp said about it today. There's an article today which I tweeted where Klopp's gone on record today to say Liverpool will still be a great place to come to, but it'll be a lot harder if we're not in the Champions League. I mean, and I think good on him for admitting that, but it'll be a lot easier for Newcastle if we're in Champions League. Infinitely, you'll get more money, your FFP will improve, but the floodgate opens for who you can get.
Yeah, this is where when you're talking about Matt Ritchie, I mean, there's a couple of parts of this equation, isn't there? One is how severe is the knee injury he's got. Second part of it is that his contract's up in the summer anyway. Third part of it is, does he want to stay? Does he want to carry on in playing? Does he see himself another 2 or 3 years as a player? In which case, perhaps he doesn't stay and he goes somewhere else. The fourth part is we're a Champions League club, so does he take up a spot in the squad? All of these are questions. If his knee injury is severe and it's going to keep him out for 5 or 6 months, perhaps he changes his own momentum and he starts looking at the sort of thing that's happening at Manchester United and Liverpool, where they've got players who can still play, but are part of the under-21 setup and they're part of the coaching team there, and they're not a part of the main squad. I mean, I think there are at least 2 clubs that I've mentioned there that do that, where they've got player who could probably still play. You know, Tom Huddleston at Man United. Tom Huddleston plays regularly for the under-21s. He's an under-21 coach, but he's still kept his playing badge. You know, he hasn't retired from football. He's still kept up as a footballer. And I think Jay Spearing at Liverpool does exactly the same. Coaches them and occasionally plays in a game where he's wanting to use that influence that he's got on the pitch to show some of the youngsters how he wants them to play the game and to be working alongside them on the pitch, not just on the touchline. So there's lots of things that can go on, but I think it all depends on Matt Ritchie himself and whether Matt does want to carry on his playing career and does he see himself as part of what is going to be a championship, a Champions League squad going forward, and whether he thinks he can fit into it and whether Eddie Howe sees him as being part of it. So this is where it becomes difficult. This is where sentiment goes out the window, and this is where the professionalism of the football club is really, really going to start to show itself, because we might all love Matt Ritchie, but is Matt Ritchie going to be one of the 25 who's going to enhance us in playing in Zagreb or playing in Barcelona or in Madrid or in Germany, if that's where we end up playing next season in the Champions League? Or are we looking at some of the players that we've spoken about in the past, Keith, who will be coming in and taking those positions that would have been either as part of a squad or as a first team selection as a big name?
It must be a more mouth-watering prospect to do the sport you love, work with a squad that massively respects you and puts you in. He's like one of the 5 diamonds of the dressing room. So it must be a much more mouth-watering prospect to do that. Because alternatively, you could go and learn how to talk horse shit and get yourself on TalkSport with a bottle of horse.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Or with Martin Keown, who calls himself an invincible, but only played 2 games in that season, which a very well-known football player often reminds us when we do talking. But yeah, great. You know, for me personally, Matt Ritchie, as you all know, was one of my favourite players. And sad to hear that he's injured and he's going to miss the rest of the season. Not that he's featured a great deal. I think what Eddie Howe made quite clear in the press conference today was how much of an influence he is, off the pitch, what he's like at the training ground. And he's been a big part of it. I think probably go back to what Mitch and Stu have said on the professionals many times, though, and there's no room for sentiment. You know what I mean? We can't keep all of these players. We can't keep Matt Ritchie. We can't keep Jamal Lascelles. We couldn't keep, John Joe Shelby. We probably, as Eric Shun's mentioning in the chat, won't be able to keep Matt Targett because he came here because he wasn't getting a game. But, these long-term players, such as Ritchie, Shelby's, of course, gone, and Lascelles, eventually, like all these other players we've had in the past, they all move on. And it's, it's football. Some may stay on. Some might become part of the coaching staff. But and I think there will be a shake-up at Newcastle behind the scenes point with the coaching staff. But for now, I think the focus is more on building things properly behind the scenes.
But I think the other one, Stevie, like you look, it'll also cull. And I say cull, it's maybe a cruel word, but you will cull younger players as well. It's not going to get there. If you're not Champions League and you've got a squad, and then you become Champions League, the whole ethic, the whole squad lifts. In the likes of Lewis, people of that kind of ilk will he was in demand. Liverpool watched him. He's £15 million. Another Bruce Bye, and you look at him, you think he hasn't become a poor athlete overnight, let's put it that way. And so there's probably another home from where he could play more. And I saw something today where Darlow, the manager of Hull, said, the jury's still out on the centre forward who's on trial, who's on loan, but as far as Darlow goes, I've made it clear that we want to sign him, and they're really keen, and they said he loves it here. And I think it says a lot about Darlow's character, that he loves playing. How many people have we seen over the years sit on the bench and not get off the bench when they could have, and just take the wages and run the contract down? So good on Darlow if he's thinking that, because I think that's an area that Newcastle. I think we need to get some competition, real competition, top competition, Champions League level for Pope, so that we've got strength in depth if Pope gets injured or gets sent off against Liverpool. We're not panicking. But for me, there's one lad keeps coming up more. And Steve tried to pronounce it on his show leaving the day, and he struggled and jumped around it 3 times. But somebody told us out. Said they call him Sobolossi.
Well, that's even worse than I said it.
Yeah, no, they call him Sobolossi. And so I said, well, we're going to pronounce him. He said, just call him Sozobo. So you have like Robbo, or call him Sozobo. But they reckon that lad's been scouted to death, and they reckon he's so special. And they said if you get him and Osimhen, you might win the Champions League. So I like to keep these names coming in every week. So you hear all these rumours, but
got 3 months of it, mate.
I know, but I think we'll pick 3 players up of the Botman, Bruno, Trippier ilk, like 3 diamonds this year, and then a lot of young ones. But we've got to hope. Champions League comes, the cuffs come off, and we've got to get a team out there and do it. And one thing I want to say before I go is, well done West Ham, because I watched you last night. They're my London team, and they played last night, and it just went disastrously wrong. But at the bottom, they fight back, and they go into away like 2-1 up. So congratulations to them.
Yeah. From our perspective, though, we have a game to focus on at the weekend. Still got plenty to get through on the show as well, and it's time for Elliot. My local pub's a bit rough. The first question in the pub quiz was, what the hell are you looking at? Cheers, Elliot. And congratulations. The ball will be in the post this week to Ray Burrett, you won the Shearer Ball. So those of you who bought tickets for the Alan Shearer Ball, it finally sold out this week, and Ray Burrett was the lucky winner. We've got your details, mate, and we will send them over to you in due course. We'll send that ball over to you in due course. So well done, mate. I'm going to give a shameless plug for this as well. Second night of rehearsals last night went very well. This is going to be a rehearsed reading. Bend it like Bobby. Cometh the hour, cometh the man, and just after the hour, the man did cometh at the double, as it was time to bend it like Bobby. It's a comedy play. It's a rehearsed reading. The play was written by Jim Orr. It's going to be performed at the Tyneside Irish Centre Friday the 16th of June, 7:30. Tickets are a £5, and they're available from newcastlelegends.com. Get yourself along to that. It's going to be a cracking night. I am going to take part in it, so you will get a laugh, if nothing else. But I'm sure you will enjoy it. It's a great play. It's well worth coming to see. So a £5 are the tickets, and they're available from newcastlelegends.com. Getting back to some of the questions which I saved from earlier. Just a little one here, Keith, and it's: does anyone want Sunderland to get promoted, to get the derbies back, or are we happy to watch them still suffer? Keith, I want Sunderland or Middlesbrough back in the Premier League next season. I'm not bothered which one. I do miss a good old derby.
What do I want? I've got no problems with Middlesbrough coming up. I'd rather sit in a bucket of sulfuric acid and pull my toenails out than Sunderland get into the Premier League. I'd be happier if they went bankrupt. I've got one face, and honestly, if you live in Durham, you'll know what it's like listening to them canker on about playing shite every week, and just honestly coming up with drivel week after week about chopping heads off and crap like that. And after a while, you just get tired of them. They're delusionary. It's something in the water, and I feel sorry for the seagulls.
Okay. Mitch?
Well, similar lines of thinking, all the actual fucks I give about both Borough and Sunderland, I put them on a train and sent them far, far away a long time ago. I really don't care. I'm not interested. What I will say, the only thing that matters in trouble, from what I've seen of them this season, when looking at their squad, is when they go back down, is how few points will they get. I'd like to see that self-styled hard man, Luke O'Neill, try his little piggyback and kissing people on the cheek game in the Premier League when he's left as the only centre-back in the club. They'll get murdered. It's too early for them. To be fair, and I like to be fair, what Mowbray's done to get them to the position they're in is almost miraculous with the squad they've got.
Yeah.
When you get into a playoff situation, it's a puncher's chance. They've got a puncher's chance. And if they take it, fantastic. But let them do all the talking. We know where we're at. Let's just talk about us. I'm not interested in anybody else.
Yep. George, do you want either of the two Northeast teams up?
Well, I think I've suggested on other platforms that the only reason I would want them both up is political rather than just football. It would be nice to have a group of Northeast clubs who were able to challenge all the rubbish that goes on at the Premier League in the same way as the group from the Northwest and the group from London do, and all the rest of it. But apart from that, I'm not that fussed. I'd come up in a tradition where I used to love the derbies, and I think I've said to you on here when I was a kid, my father and I used to go to, if I wasn't one before I was playing, when I was just a little kid, would go to St James's Park one week and would go to Roker Park the next week, just to see football, and it was great. It was part of my football education. I feel like, we used to walk through the tunnel to Jarrah and get on the buses there, and the buses tend to be from Ashington, would you believe, going to Roker Park and get on them, and they knew who we were after a while, and it was all good banter. It was all healthy as far as I was concerned. So that little bit I do miss. The one thing I will agree with Keith is, though, is that having been county commissioner for Scouts for Durham for nearly 12 years, and been to little places in Durham that I didn't even know existed, where they had scout huts at the bottom of the lane somewhere in Anfield Plain or up in St John, or right on the border of Cumbria. I used to go up there and do their annual meeting. And it either used to be at the top pub or the bottom pub. And the only reason it was in one or the other was the top pub was the Sunderland pub and the bottom pub was the Newcastle pub. And that's way out towards Cumberland. It wasn't... and same with Barnard Castle. I used to go to Barnard Castle and do their annual meeting, and half the room in front of us would be black and white and the other half would be red and white. And, it was amazing. I couldn't believe it was as hot as that out there, and it was everywhere I went in Durham. So I understand that bit from Keith. But as I say, there's a little bit of me that politically would like to see a Northeast group that give the Premier League a hard time occasionally.
I think in truth, George, I think there's more chance that I think the bitterness between the clubs is so big. I think that there's more chance if they ever did get in the Premier League, they'd vote against Newcastle. I think
very likely.
I think
very likely.
The chip on the shoulders. I mean, the balance, because they've got a chip on each shoulder, the same size, but it's huge. The sort of the inner bitterness they've got over our takeover is enormous. You wouldn't believe. There's like an obsession.
I do believe.
They do more noise on Facebook when we get beat than what they do when they win. It's an obsession, and it can't do the mental health any good. I mean, it's laughable, but what I'm saying is the thought of them voting alongside us is like me getting a curly perm tomorrow.
Quick one from you, Steve, before I bring a quick guest in. Would you like to see Sunderland and Middlesbrough back in the Premier League?
Not particularly, because I support Newcastle United, so I'm not bothered where they are. I'd rather see where they are, perfectly honest. If there was any... If somebody was to push us and say, you know what, Steve Gibson's done for Middlesbrough over the last 30-odd years is absolutely remarkable, but I'm not that sentimental that I would then want them to be successful in getting back into the Premier League. I'm a Newcastle fan. I'm not concerned about Sunderland or Middlesbrough.
All right. Anybody know who Wolves play tomorrow?
Wolves?
Yeah.
Let's have a look. Do they play Leicester?
No. They're
away.
away. Manchester United away.
Man United.
Yeah, Man United.
Who is going to be the most important person on the pitch tomorrow in that game, do you think?
Smelly Melly off the telly.
Correct. Here he is. He's going to be... Melly is going to be...
Smelly!
So tomorrow, Melly, welcome.
Hello, lads.
I was having a coffee with Melly.
Hi, Melly.
You weren't far from my thoughts, son.
Melly Barnes has, with his comrades from Ashington and surrounding areas in the northeast, has managed to support Manchester United at home consecutively for 30 years. And tomorrow the club are recognising him and his 54-seater that go every week to Old Trafford for the games on the pitch for their support. So
is that the bus on the pitch?
No, just Melly. Right. Melly and the lads.
Just when Newcastle come.
They've got them tickets for Salford FC, have they?
So Melly, well done, mate. Just have a great day for starters, mate.
Well done.
Well done, mate. We have a laugh and a joke on you.
That's what you call supporting your team, Melly.
Aye.
Have you got your green and yellow scarves back?
It's mainly a lady called Margaret Walker from up in Berwick. She's the heart of it, you know. But I've been gone for 30 years on the same bus. I remember my first trip in the Morris 1000th trip, and I've managed to get a few. I hope she's not watching. A few old players and new players to do a congratulations video to her, you know. And you know what's great? Richard Arnold, the CEO of United, I emailed him and told him the crack, and And it was him that actually got he went above and beyond, and got us a few videos. So
top man.
Yeah,
That's not why I invited you on, though, is it? Because we were having a little chat, and I just thought this would be quite a good one. We started with ticketing tonight, about paperless tickets, actually. So I just wanted to bring this up. We were talking about Champions League, weren't we? Because obviously it looks as if, Newcastle and Manchester United or Liverpool, we can't discount them just yet, maybe after tomorrow's results. But it looks as if we're going to the Champions League. I just wanted you to tell the lads how Manchester United sort out European tickets, because it's quite important from our perspective, because, we will have a fan base now who, want to get tickets for Europe. What do Manchester United do? What's the system you use to get to be able to get tickets, and how difficult do you find it to get tickets to go to a Champions League away game?
Away game is virtually impossible. Like it's, I've got a lot of credits, so to speak.
So credits is what this is the thing. This is the talking point. Describe what a credit is at Manchester United.
So domestically, like for a European away, every time you go to an away game, you get a credit, 1 credit. So when the tickets are released, you'll get 3,000 tickets. That's what you'll get for most Champions League away grounds for the away allocation. Man United, they release them to people with 10 credits or more. And if they haven't all gone, then it goes down to 9, and then 8, 7, 6 on day 2 or 3, and then down to 5, 4, and then it only goes to 0 credits if nobody's took them. It's impossible. If it ever goes to 0 credits and you get on the website, you're in a queue of 10 to 20,000 to try and get 1 ticket. I've never been successful yet, and I've applied for, like the shit games in Basel. I mean, Thursday nights as well last year. I couldn't get 1. Never got 1. And I really, really wanted to start building the European credits up more so this year. When my little one's been a little bit more older, and I still haven't been able to get 1. So it is difficult. Like I don't know what yous will do, because you're not gonna get in the Champions League, but I don't know how they're gonna. Do you have a cup scheme? Like where you get your season tickets and you can opt into FA Cup, Carling Cup, and FA Cup and Carling Cup at the minute. Carabao.
No.
In the last 20 years, we've already managed to get into the third round.
Melly, do the European credits stay with you forever, or the time limited? No, you credits over time.
You've got 3 years. You've got to keep building them up over the 3-year period.
Okay.
So, like when you get to year 3, your furthest year back, them credits will drop, and the current year will add on.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
It's a great topic for you to be talking about. What a great discussion. I bet you never thought in your wildest dreams you'd be discussing this.
Not this year.
Hey,
this year.
Melly, this time last year, we were biting my bloody fingernails in case we're going to go in a championship.
Good. I said at start the season we finished 3rd, mate, above you. But good luck to
Paul Gallant, a regular sharer of the channel, said would finish 4th at the start of the season. He takes the credit, I think, for that. So well done, Paul. Here in the chat tonight. Quick one, yeah.
You know what, though? I'm just reading this comment here from Billy Miller. That's a fair comment. Billy, you've got to be honest as well, mate. If you look back to 6, 7, 8 games ago, he did look a championship player. But I think Isaac's brought him on, I honestly do. I firmly believe Isaac's brought him on. He's like, because when Isaac first came, I was saying, he looks like he's got something, but I don't know if he's going to settle in the Premier League. I might be a bit too quick for him. But then he hit the ground running. And then Callum Wilson come back and he couldn't miss. So it's done in the world of good. So look, I'll stand on that and say, I did think that he was a championship player. I didn't think he'd done enough for you in the Premier League when you were in the majority of games. I know that scoring goals is his main aim, but you need your strikers to be doing a lot more. And I just thought there's a lot better out there than Callum Wilson, but he's proved us wrong, and I'm happy to admit that.
Johnny Allen's just put a message on the screen earlier and said if there's 65 you're going on the pitch tomorrow, you might have a chance of winning, because it does look like seriously, Melly, you're a good lad, but it looks like your backside's fell out a bit, because lately you are bottling it, aren't you?
Well, you've got to look at it I'm not making excuses because they're getting paid hundreds of £1,000s a week and they're professional athletes. But, you know, the Europa League absolutely kills Premier League teams. Tomorrow it'll be the first Saturday 3 o'clock kickoff that we've had. They're playing Thursday, Sunday, and they're playing top teams, you know, and they're knackered on their feet. And we need somebody who's going to grind it out. Casemiro 10 games ago was absolutely fantastic. Now he's knackered. He's giving the ball away. He's lackadaisy. He's lunging in. And the majority of them are like that, you know.
Bad tackles,
Melly's older than you, though.
Melly,
I just look 21, Keith.
Game tomorrow, isn't it? 58th game tomorrow. Something ridiculous like that you've played.
I
mean, crazy.
It's the first time they've had a week off in between games since October.
Yeah,
it's got to take it out of your name, no matter who you are, you know. And look, you know, everybody slates Man United, but when everybody plays Man United, still, even though they haven't won the Premier League for years, it is the cup final. They play harder. We play teams. We could play Southampton tomorrow, who are new look, and they will give us such a game because they're playing Man United. You might not want to admit that, but it's true.
No, I don't think anything to admit. I think when we play, we know Man City are way out in front, and they're what we're all trying to be, because Man City are the world's biggest club and probably the world's best club.
Mate, Keith, honestly, you've just lost any kind of credit I had. World's biggest club.
Look, the only credit you get off your Man United away tickets, so be
seriously. World's biggest club.
Man City, the gap between you and Man City is wider than the time, mate. Honestly, that's me being.
But no, what it is money. That's the only difference between Man United and Man City have got good players, but they've got no fans. Man United have not got good players, but they've got the fan base. So
that's a pretty good assessment for me.
It was down to fans, we'd win the league, but the reality is that if you said to me, when Man City did it, there was no FFP and they weren't caught out for spending whatever they wanted. We can't do that. We've got to build ours up gradually. But seriously, for us, for Arsenal, for Man United, Man City's the target for everybody now. Like, I mean,
do you know your FIFA fair play though? You know this kind of season you've had to get by it. Some of your players, I mean, you don't want to sell Longstaff now. I can remember having a conversation, and I'm sure quite a lot of yous were saying Longstaff was shite. He is absolutely phenomenal.
Not me.
He's absolutely phenomenal. And I think you would get stupid money for him. You would get stupid money for a lot of your players, which would then free up a lot of money for you to go and get. But I said to my father-in-law the other day, because he's a massive Toon fan, and I says to him, like, you're in a tricky situation now because you've got Champions League. You're going to attract the wrong players as well as the right players. You're going to attract the wrong ones. People that want to cut. At the minute, everybody in that team is playing for Eddie, playing for the fans, and playing for the badge. These money grabbers who latch on, they'll latch on, they'll come out, they'll disrupt the dressing room. So you've got to be careful not to attract some of them as well.
Two things before you go. One is I think that while Chelsea's buying them up, I think they're buying most of those players before we get to them. But the other thing is, it's good to hear for your kids' sake that you've got good blood in your family, your father-in-law.
You know what it is? Hey, Keith, I'm going to tell you now. I've got a fight on my hands because my little one, he's 6, and Newcastle's his second favourite. I've never had that. I've got 8 kids, and I've never had it where Newcastle's been their second favourite team. So I'm telling him he's got 2 choices. You know, he never brings a Newcastle top into my house, and if he does, he goes and lives with his granda.
If you give us your address, I'll ring Childline later, and I'll get either 7.
Melly, as always, mate, thanks for coming on and sharing.
All right, good luck, lads. Good luck for the rest of the season.
See you soon.
Take care, lads.
Enjoy tomorrow, Melly. Enjoy tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You deserve it, mate. Take care.
Steve, what I'll do is I'll drop you a link once I've shared the YouTube video that I've shared, and have a look, mate. It's a great watch for a great lady.
Send us a little video of you on the pitch, mate. We'll try and get it on. Good stuff.
I'll do that, aye. Cheers, lads.
Well done. Great to have Melly on. Good lad, and interesting points he made about the Champions League ticket scheme at Manchester United, something which we will hopefully have to get used to moving forward. So food for thought for the Trust and for Newcastle Supporters Club and all the other fans who want to maybe raise that issue. Okay, 15 minutes left.
God bless.
It is time. So yeah, a lot of photographs sent in prior to me live where I asked people what they wanted on the show. So first of all, this one from Albert. Keith Patterson loves his wigs. And for Hasty.
No.
I knew it was coming.
Hasty and his brother. Hasty and his brother. On the left there, top left.
Top left.
Fantastic. There we go. Thanks to Toon Boy for this one. Hasty reflecting on Sunday's result.
Yeah.
With his Corona.
A few like
that would probably pass the new ruling that it's got to look like you. This wouldn't, because you're not bald on top. My dog even trained to embark with the word Mackham, Andrew Teasdale. Thank you for that.
Nice dog.
Hooliganism, Hasty.
That's a cartoon.
It's not even. It's a strange one. You've got a canny pocket.
Right.
This one, Mr. Hasty, ready for the first pint? Possibly one for Friday. Somebody sent us that one. Got to be honest, we've been sent some really new dogs this time. Sam Chipperfield, Tony Blair channeling his inner Steve Hasty.
A few people said that before.
That's excellent, actually. Back to the dogs. Guess who? Toon lookalike. That's your brother again.
That's my brother, right?
And what's going on with his hair? Hasty's now influencing Brentford Football Club. If you can just see where the arrow's pointing down.
Yep, there I am.
Yeah.
In the background. Now, we've never had this animal before. We're very strict on dogs now, but Hasty the yak.
The yak. Yeah.
From Jimmy Moore.
Continental.
Hasty the yak. And Steve Hasty goes, people are now bringing their dogs to meet me at the food bank.
That was Sunday at the match. Anyone who's been to the food bank will see the two dogs that get left there. And the guy had a little puppy there. It was only about 8 or 9 weeks, and he had a little pouch in the front. It's absolutely brilliant. Lovely dog.
I think it's great that they're bringing them up to see you, though, at the food bank. I mean, that's great. This one from Rita. No apology this week. And these two from Rita.
Oh, hey, Rita, man.
This one from Sam Chipperfield. Hippie Hasty. Toon lookalike. I think he's moved on from the agile lookalikes to more sprightly. Oh my God, it's Jesus. Jimmy Wilson. Watch out for Hasty with this mind.
That's, dear me, look at that. That's weird, that.
It is. It's a dog's backside, but with Jesus coming out of it. He was also trying to suggest that it could be a Hasty lookalike. So
No, I'm not having that.
When was Hasty and Harry Enfield? Said Stuart Hines.
Secret.
And this one from Kevin. The leftovers from a Steve Hasty haircut.
Hey, lad.
Farmer Hasty.
Yeah, I like that one. That's good. That's good.
I'm sure I've had that one before. Vengeful Hasty from Albert. I hate Patterson.
That's just how about sticking my face onto a picture of a dog.
I hate Patterson. Jackson 5 Hasty from Albert.
Well, what can we say?
Spandau Hasty. I told you this was Meerkat Hasty.
Oh, we're not doing dogs, we said.
The coronation gave Albert some.
Well, we knew this was coming. We knew this was coming, didn't we?
And there he is again, war last. Stephen Kennedy, apprentice, Steve Hasty.
Oh, lad,
and dressed up for the coronation.
That's again just Albert sticking me face in.
Oh my God, there's a Steve Hasty after a sex change from Steve Kennedy. And Simon and Garfunkel, he's Toon lookalike. I'm not sure who he's got that down as. He's put my name there. Whether that's me and Steve Hasty or Mitch and Steve Hasty, I'm not sure.
Well, we know George will remember those guys. Do you remember them, George?
Yeah. Steve Hasty
Three
from
Stooges.
Stephen Kennedy again. The Three Stooges, that's right.
That's right.
Gordon Bolland and Steve Hasty.
Oh, Jimmy
Okay,
Moore.
we're at the end of the Hasty ones now. Sexy Hasty from Jimmy Moore. Quite what's sexy about that, Jimmy, I really don't know. I think
I'm getting worried about Jimmy now.
I am, yeah. A young War Hasty's debut on top of the Pops and a 3-1 Penman. So there's a double. There's a double header. All right. Manquillo and a young Andrew Ridgely.
Not bad. That.
Very good.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Actor Michael Moriarty and Mikael Damsgaard. That's very good.
What is that?
And Andy Carroll and Billy Fane.
Yes.
Nice.
And Ten Hag and Paul Warren.
Both look like Steve Ray.
Aye.
That is close, that.
Stu Penman getting in full swing at the coronation, said Sooty. And Stephen Kennedy wanted to know what happened to Keith when he looked like this a few years ago.
I tell you what, that's my double now. Like, I've got
And
one out,
Mike Gent,
It's spicy.
Max Headroom, and the boxing commentator.
Yeah,
oh my God.
definitely.
This one was one I picked up on Instagram. That's Keith, my mate, who thinks he looks a little bit, or he gets told he gets everybody thinks he looks like Pep anyway. So
Hey.
me,
Steve
says
Ray.
Iceman.
All right, Steve Ray.
Apologies for the swastika on there, but it is a film. This one from Joe Hop, George and Sam the Eagle.
Hey,
You know,
I've made it. I finally made it. Oh my God. I'm really famous now.
Or maybe the Easter Island statue.
Oh, I'm really famous now.
That's shocking. That.
Yeah.
Me from Catherine Lundy. I've had that one before. It's a different photo. This one's from Michael. This is his mate who is he's on his way across on his holidays, and he said, well, I got this weird message off him this week, and he's basically saying to us, I'm off to see your kid. Any messages for him? I'm like, my kid? And then he goes, yeah. He says, you remember I told you a while back that there's this guy who looks exactly like you. So Michael Charters asked us to give a shout out to Hisaranu, who owns the piano bar, because he looks like me. So there we go. I hope you're having a good time, Michael. Hope you enjoy your holidays. And last couple, Harrison playing solo and Harrison playing solo. Name look-alike.
Look at Amy.
Look at Amy, I like it. Something a bit different.
That's mad.
Worst Simon and Garfunkel tribute act ever from Jimmy.
That's good. That is funny.
And the top two, Brian Robson and Toon Tipster's intro video look-alike.
That's brilliant. That.
Yes, aye.
That's superb.
You slowed that one down to find that one. Winner this week, Ando and Chris Wood from Joe Hop.
Oh, I wouldn't like to tell anything about that.
There's a question, Steve. Is Chris Wood and Shelby not playing in any of the Forest games?
They're both injured. No, Shelby's. I think Shelby was dropped because of his attitude, and Chris Wood's injured for the rest of the season.
That's right.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, that's it. Toon look like we will trim the dogs down next week. We'll give them a full wash and blow dry. We'll trim them down, and we'll make sure they look like Steve Hasty or his brother.
So are they all?
Are they all what?
Are dogs allowed?
Dogs are allowed. They've got to look like them. So the strict instructions now on dogs. We're not going to do as many. That's the last time you get a massive amount of dogs. They must look like Steve. We're not accepting any faces superimposed onto a dog. That's not a look-alike. That's
worse. Couldn't it?
I think that's discrimination against Albert.
Keith, you don't need to worry, Keith, because if they can't do dogs, they'll do alpacas and goats and camels and everything. You know,
that's right. Nobody on the live that I did complained about yaks. So
no.
If you can find a yak that looks like Steve,
come on, Albert, lad.
Alpacas next. Alpacas and camels and God knows.
There's George stirring the pot, Steve. Remember who said it. Okay, Newcastle United take on Leeds, 12:30 kickoff, and we will, as always, go to our two videos. First up, it is Paul with his away day guide.
Hi folks, this is Away Day Guides. I'm Paul, and we've got Leeds coming up. you're driving in, good news is there's plenty of parking around, and it's not too expensive either, usually around £5. There's lots of car parks around the stadium because it's set up as a concert venue, international stadium, this, that and the other. The first one is one of the club car parks, and that's at the postcode of the club, which is Lima Sierra 110 Echo Sierra. What 3 words for where you want to be to get into it is random device gifted. Next one is Fullerton Park, which is actually handier. The postcode is Lima Sierra 118 Tango Zulu. Your what 3 words for the entrance is hired copper spared, and there's quite a lot of parking as well in the pub across the road, the old Peacock, postcode Lima Sierra 118 Tango Victor. And your what 3 words for the entrance is Misty Drift Spicy. Okay, moving on to pubs. They're not very welcoming around Leeds. Drinking before the game in a proper pub, you're going to be looking to head to the city centre. If you have come in by train and you've got off at Leeds Central Station, you've probably done the right thing. There's lots of pubs. You might struggle to get in with football colours. The city centre pubs tend to refuse entry, including home fans on a match day, especially immediately around the station. Further away from the station you get, actually the better it is, but I recommend a couple at the station first, just for convenience. Your first one being the Wetherspoons, which is in the train station itself on the concourse. As you come through the barriers, don't go straight out the doors in front of you, turn left, go past the McDonald's, down a little ramp, and just before you get to the end, there is what looks like a little Wetherspoons from the inside of the concourse, but it actually expands into a much bigger one inside. That's really handy. Buses from out the front from the other side of that as well. And if you want your what 3 words to guide you there, Lungs Hobby Flags will get you into the venue. If you're driving and parking in the city somewhere, your postcode is Lima Sierra 14 Delta Yankee. And then as you come out the station, if that's too full, go across the road and bear right, you'll find another Wetherspoons, 5 minutes walk up the hill, called the Beckett's Bank. That's massive. It's over a few floors. And your what 3 words for the front of that is narrow crowned plant. A bit further away from the train station, towards the river, you've got Air Bar, which is an old like mill style building from the front. You go through, it's like archways and stuff, and it's actually got a little strip of river facing beer garden at the other side, which is quite nice if the weather's good. Your postcode for that is Lima Sierra 2 7 Echo Whiskey, and your what 3 words is Take Patrol Jabs. And then a little bit further up the road on the right, you've got the Lamb and Flag, also well spoken about by visiting fans, and you can find that with the what 3 words of Hugs Rods Wiring. If you are drinking in the Air Bar or the Lamb and Flag, your closest bus route is the 52. It's just around the corner. Your what 3 words for the bus stop is Defeat Edits Pure, and that will take you to the ground. Those run every 20 minutes, and it's about a 15-minute journey. Your other best bus route will get you from around the train station area near the Hilton Hotel. Your what 3 words for the stop is Parts Hotel Length, and that's going to drop you a few streets away from the stadium to the southeast, and it's then a 10-minute walk to the ground. You need to cross the road and follow the other football fans. Moving up the ground, if you didn't go there to start with, your turnstiles can be found at Backs Bring Crowd. Get there early, keep your tickets well looked after. We had a nightmare getting in the other season because some of them were damaged. You're in the southwest corner of the ground, and the view is okay. Cheers.
Good stuff as always. And now time for Tune Statue.
Hello guys and everyone watching. Another huge game for Newcastle United on Saturday. The first of the 4 remaining finals for the Champions League spot. Here is the pick of the stats for the game tomorrow. I'll start with the optimistic ones. First of all, we have won 5 out of our last 7 games at Ellen Road, and we have drawn 1 and losing only 1. Also, in 17 games against teams in the bottom half of the table, we don't have a defeat. We have won 10 and we have drawn 7. At the same time, we are still chasing our record 9th away victory. Our record is in seasons 93-94 and 2001-2002 when we registered 9 wins. So far we are on 8 with 2 games remaining, so we can set a new record. We are also chasing our record goals scored away from home. We are currently on 29. In 94 we scored 31 and in 2002 we scored 34. So 5 more goals to match the record, 6 more goals to break it. At the same time, Sam Allardyce comes for his first home game for Leeds, having lost 5 consecutive games in the Premier League, counting here his previous spell in West Bromwich Albion, and his 8 games without a win. At the same time, Leeds have conceded the most goals at home in the Premier League, 31, together with Southampton. Now, stats which are not so optimistic. Leeds have played 4 games this season when they're in the relegation zone, and funnily enough, they have won all of them. Sam Allardyce at the same time has 13 wins against Newcastle United. This is his favorite opposition in the Premier League. And the referee for the game is Simon Hooper, who also refereed the new game against Leeds and the 2-0 loss away at Man City, so we didn't score a goal in his previous 2 games when he refereed. At the same time, Newcastle has kept only 1 clean sheet in the last 12 games, while we kept 12 clean sheets in the first 20. So this is a watch out. Let's win it.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks to the chaps for supplying the videos. No Joe tonight. He ended up getting kept back at work. He had all intention on coming on. So he will be back hopefully next week. So around the board, Keith, what are you expecting and what's your prediction for the Leeds game?
I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be a hard game. I think Fat Sham is a bit of a clown, me. I'm not a big lover. I think that might be tapered with his time at Newcastle, but I think any man that goes on has been out the game as much as him and loses his all-time dream job for trying to scam a quick million off somebody else. I can't respect. I just think his man's a nutcase. So he goes in there and then the first thing he does a press conference and starts saying he's in the league of Pep and Klopp and all that. He's lost the plot. So but the one thing he will do, he'll get them fired up tomorrow. And I feel that getting them fired up is dangerous. I think it's one thing to fire people up, but I think that, wouldn't surprise me if Bruno doesn't get crazily clattered tomorrow. I think he's carrying an injury. I might be wrong, but it looks like, that's a story. He's carrying an injury. He might get an operation at the end of the season. But, you want long stuff in a game like that so that you can release Bruno further forward. But you see last week, there was a lot of fracas and arguing and spatting going on. And Newcastle are a tough team, and I just hope we stand toe-to-toe with them. I think it'd be rough, and I hope there's going to be a turning point. We've got a habit of going down now that sort of we came out of the World Cup and then we seemed to rally and we looked unbeatable. And then we started going down, teams like Brentford and Southampton and things like that. So playing Leeds away, I think there's every chance we might go down. But I think we'll rally, and I think there'll come a time in the game where the fitness in Newcastle and the class of Newcastle will tell. And I think once we rally that period, and I expect it to be blood and thunder for the first 20, 25 minutes. I just hope we can, put our foot on the ball, calm it down and make the ball work. And get by, those crazy challenges and all the fracas that goes on. But I think like Everton away, I don't think it'll be a very friendly place to go. I can say, I fear there might be crowd trouble, there might be crazy tackles. After that, I hope Newcastle put the foot on the ball, turn it round and show them how good they are. And so I'm going to predict 3-1, probably Leeds to score first.
All right, Mitch, over to you.
I just want to see a reaction. I want to see a positive reaction. If we show the right reaction, we should be able to win this game. I've seen all sides of Leeds, and I still can't square the circle that they brought somebody in with 4 games to go thinking he's going to make a massive difference to a squad that is littered with mistakes in them and all sorts. I've spoken to lots of the Leeds lads here. They've been convinced for the last 2 months they were down. Let's help them on their way.
Get the dice out.
Get the dice out. Yeah, we're gone. A little bit of dicage. And the dice says Leeds 1, Newcastle United 2.
Ooh, okay. That's a prediction I think we got from Gibbo and Supermac last night. Quite a tight game. George?
2-0 to Newcastle. Hard-fought game. But I think we'll come through it because we're as tough as they'll ever be. And without the mistakes that they make on themselves. So I'm, quietly confident that we'll come home with a victory.
All right, Steve.
You know what? Neil said he's looking for a reaction. On reflection, I didn't think we played that bad last week. And I know we had a long conversation after the match, Keith. But on reflection, I look at the game and I think, on any other day, that some of those efforts that we had gone in, it would have been totally different, especially the early goal, the penalty getting choked off and hitting the post. But different team. There's a reason why Leeds are at the bottom, because they're not very good. Yeah. That's the reason why they're there. There's a reason why we're at the top, because we are good. And you just had to listen to those stats that came earlier. I watched them last week, and I watched the game earlier in the month. And dear me, they're all over the place. They are absolutely all over the place. They got 2-1 against City last week purely because Sam in his first game decided to just completely load the midfield and defence, and he left a player up front on his own who couldn't trap a bag of cement, and they can't score goals. You know, that's their Achilles heel, has been all season, and we've just got to get back to playing defensively as we were, not conceding goals and being confident enough to know. And I think that team will react, that our team are pushing for a Champions League spot. I think the confidence is there, and I'm going to go for a 2-0 win to Newcastle United. It's going to be an absolute nightmare in terms of the atmosphere. It's only a bear pit. We know that because Sam will have them wound up. And I think that can, an early goal, and I think you can silence Selland Road, and you can turn it into not a bear pit, but you can turn it into an absolute mess for them. Because I think once they go back behind, I think you suddenly see them cave in.
Hope you're right, mate. Hope you're right.
2-1 I'm going for to Newcastle. Bring on the cat. Now, I did have a tweet of the week to put on the screen. Where is it? Here we go. Another retrospective one from 2016. Decided to follow Steve Wraith again. Unfollowed less than 2 hours later. Has remembered what a self-publicising twat he is.
Sounds like you can't let that, Mark. Why would you write that?
Last words for you, for all of you out there. Thank you so much for this. 293 new subscribers last month, 299,500 total views, 4 million minutes watched. NUFC Matters still producing, still entertaining, and big thanks to all of you for all of your support.
Well done, Steve Wraith.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great weekend, guys. Take care.
Cheers, everyone.
See ya.